In this lesson, we're going to go over order of operations. Specifically, our objective is to understand the order in which to simplify an arithmetic expression. So order matters. So let's kind of diverge from math for a little bit and just think of some examples in your life where order is important. When I was thinking of this, I came up with some for myself. This includes possibly my morning routine. I have to get out of bed, have coffee before I do anything else for the day. This could be something like paying for your parking permit before you park on campus in one of the spaces, or something like convention. So if you're a musician or if you like to read books, the way in which we read books or music is from left to right. And that order is very important to understand the meaning of either the book that we're reading or the music that we are supposed to be playing. So the same is true in mathematics, and that's why we talk about the order of operations, and that's why it'll be used not only in this lesson, but in future lessons in this course as well, is that order is important. Let's say, for example, in this first example, I'm going to demonstrate what's possible if we have no order. So pretend there's no order of operations, and let's just pick a few ways to go through and simplify this problem. So the first way could work from left to right all the way across. So that would give us -2 plus 3, which is 1, and we'll keep the times 8 minus 6. 8 minus 6 would give us 2. Let's go through it a different way. I'll go the other way. I'll start at the back and move my way forward. So -2 plus 3, 8 minus 6 is 2, so that would still be multiplication. -2 plus 6, this would give me 4, or you could start in the middle and say, okay, -2 plus 24 minus 6. So it'd be 22 minus 6, which would give us 16. Okay, so if there's no order, if we kind of just pick how we want to simplify this, we're going to come up with 3 different answers. So how do we know what's correct? And that's where the order of operations comes into play, is that there's an established order for simplifying expressions so that we get the same answer as one another when we're going through these. So order of operations, you may remember this as PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which is the order in which you start to simplify and then you move down. So the first thing that you do is that P, it stands for parentheses, but I want you to really think of this as a group, which means that there's a group that's set apart either by parentheses or sometimes with brackets that you're supposed to do first. Okay, next is exponents, and we'll talk a little bit more about exponents on the next slide, just as a refresher. Once you've done parentheses or groups, exponents, then you go to multiplication and division. Now, the way that you do multiplication and division is from left to right. So if you're simplifying an expression and you've taken care of your parentheses, you've taken care of your exponents, and now you're moving on to multiplication and division, you don't necessarily do multiplication first. You go left to right. So if division comes first going left to right before multiplication, that's what you would do. Okay, so after doing that, then you would go to addition and subtraction, and it's the same thing. When all of those previous steps have been completed and you're just left with addition and subtraction, you move your way from left to right. Before we get into some examples, I'm going to let's go back to this one. So now that we've talked about the order of operations, let me erase this. And we'll talk about the correct way to simplify this. Okay, so here's what's correct. So we would start with our parentheses or our groups. There are none. Then we would go to our exponents. There are none. And then multiplication and division in the order from left to right. In this case, there's just multiplication. So we'd have -2. 8 times 3 is 24 minus 6. Okay, now we have addition and subtraction left. So we go left to right. -2 plus 24 is 22 minus 6. And you'll notice that what I'm doing here is I'm doing one step and then writing everything the same. So for instance, I did 8 times 3 to be 24, and I left the -2 plus and the -6. So when you're doing your work, make sure that you're doing it in a way that's organized so that you can remember the steps that you've completed. So that way, if you go back and look or review, or it just helps you to organize your thoughts. Okay, next 22 minus 6 would give us 16. So this would be the final correct answer. So let's do a quick refresher of exponents. So exponents come in the form of a to the power of b, where a is what is called the base and b is our exponent. The exponent tells us how many times to multiply the base by itself. We'll do some examples on the next screen, but let's say we have 7 squared. So 7 is the base, 2 is the exponent, and this means 7 times 7. How many times we multiply the base, which is 7, by itself? 2 times for the exponent. Okay, so just a couple of examples here. 3 squared, this means 3 times 3, which is 9. For part B, notice that -2 is in parentheses, so this -2 counts as the entire base. So when you're going to apply the exponent, your base that you're applying it to is -2. So this is -2 times -2 times -2, and if you multiply that all together, we get -8. Part C is a little bit different. The negative is outside of the parentheses. So in this case, the only base that we have, or the only part of the base, is the 4. Okay, this -1, since it's on the outside of the parentheses, or that negative, can signify that there's a 1 being multiplied there. Okay, so one of the ways you can think about this is we have -1, we still have parentheses, and now we're going to apply the exponent to our base. Okay, so this becomes -16. So pay attention to parts B and C. Where the negative falls is really important when you're applying that exponent. Example 2, so find the value of the expression / simplify. So we will use the order of operations to do so. First, we take care of our parentheses or our groups. There are none in part A, and then we go to our exponents. So in this case, our exponent, 2 to the 3rd power, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So this becomes 8. We still have multiplication, and then we do our second one as well. 3 squared, we did that on the previous slide, is 9. So now we move down, multiplication and division. There's only multiplication left. This answer is 72. Okay. In part B, same thing. Parentheses are groups, they're not there. Exponents, we do have an exponent, so let's take care of that. So 21 minus 5 squared is 5 times 5, which is 25 plus 5. So we did our exponents. We have no multiplication or division. We go to addition and subtraction from left to right. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take 21 minus 25, which is -4, plus 5. Okay, and in this case, that would just give us 1. Okay. Moving on to the next set of examples, find the value of the expression or simplify. So in part A, we do see a parenthesis or a group, okay? So be very careful with parentheses because they do signify groups and they also signify multiplication. So that's why when we talk about order of operations, it's helpful to think of the P as a group that's kind of been distinguished or set apart, okay? What I mean by that is looking at part A, if we just had 3 parentheses 2, that's multiplication. In this case here, our group, or our P for PEMDAS, is the 2 squared minus 3. So we would look at doing that part first before we move outside of that to simplify the rest of the expression. Okay, so we're going to start within our group. So within our group, you also apply order of operations. So we do our exponent first. Okay, and we continue to evaluate that group. So we have 3. Leave the parentheses there because now this is multiplication. Plus 7, so we have 3 plus 7, which gives us a final answer of 10. Okay, so for part B, we're going to do the same thing. So P for parentheses, so we've got double parentheses, we've got the 10 minus 2 in parentheses, and we've got our bracket, which is also denoting a group. So you start from the inside and work your way out. So we have 4. I'm going to keep the bracket there. And we start with our parentheses. 10 minus 2 is 8. Okay. And we keep going now. So we continue to work in the group. There's no exponent. So next we go to multiplication. 4, this is 3 minus 72. Okay. And we continue to work in that group. 4 times 3 minus 72 is -69. And now it's multiplication. 4 is being multiplied by that quantity. It actually is at the top as well, You would just have to distribute it to everything if you were going to go about it that way. So that's why we do the groups first, everything in there, and then apply what's remaining. 4 times negative 69 is negative 276. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me.